Okay, welcome to another episode of Dogs Off the Leash.
Do it for the dogs. Do it for the dogs. I do it for the dogs. I do
Had
it for
some
my
technical
dogs.
difficulties this morning, which was completely my fault. So I wanted to try to hop on here and try to make it right as much as I could. But yeah, Georgia defeats Georgia Tech 16-9. And what I think a lot of us probably thought was going to be a bit of a barn burner, right? Georgia's offense has been absolutely clicking. Mike Bobo and company have been pushing all the right buttons. Gunnar Stockton has been on one. Some people are even, going as far as saying he should be a front runner in the Heisman race. Georgia Tech has had one of the most prolific offenses in the country this year. Granted, they play in the ACC where they don't do defense that often, but still a lot of respect to what Georgia Tech has done. Maybe the game hype had fallen off just a little bit after their loss to Pitt. But Haynes King is the real deal. 15 rushing touchdowns on the ground, and 16-9. No touchdowns scored. One touchdown scored by Georgia, I think, in the second quarter when they scored 13 points. Gunnar Stockton 70 passing yards overall, 181 for Haynes King. A lot of ground game. But listen, this was a rivalry. You never know how these games are going to go. Georgia Tech was trying to play spoiler. Georgia, number 4, trying to maintain that strong position, get a bye week going into the playoff. And it just didn't work out for Georgia Tech. Great team and a great season. But this is why I really don't chirp with some of these programs that are our rivals right now, because Kirby Smart has kept the Bulldogs in relevance. Behind me right now, y'all can't see, but Paul Feinbaum, they're going on with the Lane Kiffin introduction to LSU. The coaching carousel's already started. Florida, Auburn, Arkansas, I believe, maybe. Lane Kiffin to LSU. John Summerall from Tulane to Florida. Alex Golesh from South Florida to Auburn might be a good hire there. And then Ryan Silverfield from Memphis to Arkansas. But little old Georgia and Kirby Smart just keep on pushing. In a year where this roster is extremely young, and to watch this defense start to look like NFL prospects very quickly. I mean, DeMello Jones had a great game. Ellis Robinson had an amazing interception. A lot of people were wanting him to be benched, not playing at all to start the season. Both of those guys are playing so good that Daniel Harris started the season this year and played a lot last year, is already entered the transfer portal. So the development that you get at Georgia, shout out to players who go have success elsewhere. But for those people who get an offer from Georgia who don't want to come here, it's not because you don't want to get developed. That's just not the case, because we're seeing it in real time. We talked a little bit this season about it's hard for us having a Georgia podcast not to be a little bit biased, right? But the real options, in my opinion, were for this team to go 12-0, 11-1, or 10-2. I picked 11-1. That was kind of my optimistic take. There were plenty of times this season and plenty of opportunities, like home against Ole Miss, at Tennessee, even Alabama. Like, we could have won that game, ended up losing that game. 11-1 was a really, I think, a great coaching job by this staff. Kirby talked about that last year, about how he thought that was the best. I think this one's even better. You don't have a Carson Beck to lean on. You don't have that Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey. You've got a really fresh and young team. So to go 11-1 against that gauntlet, I think is amazing. And what's Georgia's reward? Seeing Alabama in the SEC championship. A lot of fans are kind of torn about this. I was on the side of wanting to rest and wanting to hopefully avoid the game altogether, not just because it's Bama, but just because of the wear and tear, right? We already have Drew Bobo, who is out. A talented roster is great, but having an available roster right now is what's most important. So we'll talk about that more a little bit in the next pod. But some other things I wanted to talk about is the defense, man. This Glenn Schumann defense has made a 180 in the past month or so. There was a time where Georgia fans were more upset about Glenn Schumann's defense than they were about Mike Bobo on offense, if you can believe it. We were there for a little bit, and it was bad. Like, to be honest, we couldn't put it together. Again, we were young. The secondary was just getting their top blown off every time an offense had a pulse, it felt like. But let's run through some of the stats. Going back to Mississippi State, not a great team, but a prolific offense. 21 points given up. Against Texas, 10 points given up. Charlotte, but still 3 points given up. And then Tech had to be like a top 5 offense, give or take a few. 9 points, no touchdowns. I think Kirby took that personally, and Glenn Schumann as well. So shout out to the defense that actually looks like a really cohesive unit. If we can keep that going, CJ Allen played, which is a great, great sign, even though he wasn't at his best. We have so much depth at linebacker that we managed to allow him to not play as much. But him going into the playoffs with this defense that's starting to look like a real threat is going to give us a real chance to win championships, whether that's next week in Atlanta or, I think Miami's where the national championship's being played. I might be mistaken about that. Correct me. But yeah, I'm starting to really like what I've seen from this defense and this Georgia team overall. Shout out also to KJ Bolden and Q Johnson, who has been really, really coming to his own. He's number 33 wearing those big shoulder pad things on defense. You don't see that a whole lot. But shout out to QJ. He's out there looking like a beast, man. And then I felt like Georgia was going to be able to run the ball against Tech. Maybe a little bit more effective than we were, but we still ran it for a $190. Nate Frazier is starting to look like he wants to be the RB1 of this offense, and that is only going to benefit this team because you have Chauncey Bowens, who is still a very capable back. You've got McCray, number 2, who's your bruiser when you need it. You've got Cash Jones. You've got all of this talent in this running back room. It's really going to be hard for teams in the playoffs to really stop what Georgia wants to do right now. Throwing Gunnar Stockton in his legs. It's a lot to deal with, man. It really, really is. So Nate Frazier, 16 carries for 108 yards. Zachariah Branch was pretty much the only offensive threat through the air for us on Saturday. He now has 68 receptions on the season. He's about, I want to say 600 plus, so I don't think he's going to get the single season record for yards, but receptions, he has a real chance. So the further we go into the playoffs, the better opportunity he's going to have to do that. And I would love for Branch to come back next year, but the way he's playing, some NFL teams are going to give him some good grades, so we'll see how that goes. I already mentioned Drew Bobo with his foot injury. From initial reports, it looks like he'll probably miss the SEC championship game, and Malachi Tolliver could be the next man up. They may put out Glover out there. They may just rotate their more veteran guys in the line. You might see Micah Morris at the center position. You may see somebody else with some experience there. So we'll wait and see confirmed reports, which Kirby's not going to do probably for strategic sake. So we'll see how that goes. And then special teams. In a game like this, having an all SEC kicker is the difference between wins and losses, man. I mean, it turns into time of possession. It turns into turnovers. It turns into field position. And we know Kirby puts a lot of stock into all of that. So, yes, it wasn't a sexy win. Gunner's not going to get any Heisman hype off of that, even though I've been saying I think next year is probably the more realistic year for that. But, hey, it's a win. And this morning when me and Keegan were attempting to do the podcast, he made a really good point. So I think the most important thing is the advantage that we had over Tech going into this game is that, yes, we played in Atlanta, but Mercedes-Benz is much more familiar to Dawg faithful and Dawg players to this point, right? Gunner had his first start or his first playing time in a real meaningful game against Texas last year in the SEC championship, right? He has this Georgia Tech game. He almost gets his head knocked off against Texas. He has to fight through a meat grinder of a game, 16-9 against Georgia Tech. He's got some real adversity and some real experience in the stadium. So I think that bodes well for this matchup with Alabama, which we'll talk about later this week. I don't know if that's going to be enough to get the dub, but I mean, and I've already got friends texting me right now asking how confident I am. I'm really confident in this team. It's just Alabama's just got that mental thing against us right now. And I think, to be honest, I just didn't want to play in the SEC championship more than I fear Alabama. We could have beat them the first time. I think even like real honest Alabama fans would say that we had a real chance. Maybe we lose again by 3. When we win by 3. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to have a tough time picking Georgia again, but it's not because this team can't do it. It's just all the factors that I've already mentioned so far. So, yeah, man, I just want to – I don't know where this season went. It just 3 months, just boom, 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 boom. And now we're here trying to put ourselves in a position to win championships. And for those traditional fans out there, Georgia is in the SEC championship game, and we're going to go try to win it. We know it means a lot to Kirby. We know it means a lot to these players. And really, I think it means a lot for next year, right? This is where we're starting to see what the roster kind of projecting where it's going to look like next year, right? Players are starting to see like, hey, do I have a path to play? Do I need to go somewhere else? NIL, this whole situation. So let's go try to win this SEC championship the same way, we didn't have to win this game against Georgia Tech, but it means a lot to us as fans, a lot to players. So we go out and handle business. So looking forward to what this week is going to look like as we prep. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. We'll try to keep up with all the news that's coming out rapid fire. Make sure you guys tap in with us wherever you get your podcast, whether that is Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And as always, guys, you know what it is. Off the leash.
I do it for the dogs. Do it for the dogs. Do it for the dogs. I do it for the dogs.